Hello and welcome to the White Deer Filmmaking Podcast, brought to you by the White Deer International Film Festival. That's it.
That is it, yeah.
That's us.
That is us.
That's Mark.
Hello.
I'm Adam.
For context, he just pointed to me, not that the listeners can consider.
Well, that also is a great reason for people to watch it on YouTube. That you could have seen me
plug.
Point to you. That's one of the more exciting things that you can gain from the podcast if you watch us on YouTube.
The podcast of which is produced by filmmakers, ourselves, for filmmakers, yourselves, covering useful industry topics which don't always get covered, don't always get known, just general things that might be of interest to you, because they interest us and we thought that we might share because we are filmmakers. So if we find it interesting, then hopefully you will too.
And if there's a question that you want to know the answer, we can ask one of these directors, composers,
actors, writers
that we interview. You can ask a question, you can send it in on any social media, or send us an audio message on the Anchor podcast app as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Today's episode.
Well, before that, for those YouTube viewers, what I'd like to say is, well, give an explanation, because today we are recording this intro and outro in an interesting location, the same as last week's, which we never mentioned anything about. For YouTube viewers, you'll see this, but for anyone else, we are in, a pub, essentially. Before it opens, we thought we would come along and grab our intros and outros, but this is the location where we filmed our previous film, Conviction Without Remorse. So, interesting, but you might hear some strange noises. I mean, the chef's getting ready for work, staff members arriving, things like that, conversations happening. So, apologies, but also it's... Well, we're just trying to be hyper efficient, really, aren't we?
It's a real life environment.
It's a real life environment, yeah. We just can't afford an office, everyone, so we're just scraping on by.
Yep, we haven't got a podcast studio
yet. It's coming.
So
it's coming.
We use a pub.
Yeah. But today's episode, on to more serious things.
This was really interesting because it was a composer for the first time as well that we've interviewed. So it was really interesting. The film, The Ribbon, won Best Soundtrack in our September-October season last year. And we spoke to Jonathan Galland to talk about his work on the soundtrack of the film. And it was just so interesting to hear about how he developed the music, how he came to find the project as well. It was just really good.
I think because we don't know much at all about it, so we might actually, as interviewers, I guess sound a bit naive in certain aspects, but that's why I think this is possibly one of the most important interviews for me, because I've learned so much from this personally. The others I can relate to. This one I'm like genuinely...
I think this one we were starting from little knowledge. The other ones, directors, writers, actors. Obviously, Mark's an actor himself, so I think from the conversations with the actors that we've interviewed, you've learned something, but you've come at it from a point of view of knowing other stuff. Whereas this one's kind of we've come at it from not much knowledge, just an interest in how useful sound can be, and music in particular can be. But
seeing it from the composer's mindset is just exceptionally useful to know. Yeah, and the challenges that they might face as well.
I found it really insightful. So hopefully you will too. Should we get straight to it?
We should, but we should also just remind people that they should stay tuned, because at the end of the podcast we do have our now weekly code, 10% off code for any submission that you want to do. It's for the first 50 users, so after that then it's gone until we have a new one next week. But make sure to stay tuned till the end for that. I think that's everything.
I think so.
Okay, well,
let's go.
Enjoy,
Jonathan.
Enjoy. I guess the first question would be, so how did you get involved with the ribbon as a project?
Well, the funny thing is, it's actually coming from an alumni from my school who
Hmm.
graduated a few years ago, and I was just finishing up the master's degree over there. And
Hmm.
it ever so happened that the project she was working on actually got picked up by the school because it was so promising. And so
Mm.
they decided to have a whole team, a whole crew working on it. And that was my very last semester. So like I almost missed the project, but I got on board as one of the last composers for the project because there was about
Mm.
5 or 6 composers before me. And
Hmm.
after every semester, they had to redo the music, and it was just a whole pain.
Right.
Um, when I saw the film for the first time, I knew I wanted to do this. You know, it was like very
Mm.
powerful film, and I said to the director, you know, I'll redo the whole thing, but I can promise you I'll finish the score. So that's how I got on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And when you did see the film for the first time, what I guess what state was it in terms of the music composition for it? Did you have any music to accompany with it? Yeah.
Yes, there was stamp music. It was all piano.
Okay.
And in my mind, I already had like this entire orchestra thing going on
Mm.
because the film is so epic by itself, the
Mm.
way it looks.
Mm.
Um, and it was still in its animatic version, so
Mm.
not compelling to look at. But you know, the most important was there. The emotions were
Mm.
there. The shots were great, and um, that's what sold me on it.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, I think it really helped. It really enhanced the film and brought it to another level. Just having your score on it, and yeah, it was really interesting to see. Obviously, when we were judging it, we were kind of imagining what it would be without it, and I think
Mm.
that's what we were kind of judging, how much you kind of helped the film. Obviously, like you say, the film was very good as it is, but yeah, I think you really took it to another level. Just going back a bit, how did you get into composing? Have you been doing it for long?
Well, I've always been involved with classical music and music in
Mm.
general ever since I was a kid. I'm not coming from a family of musicians or artists for that matter, but I've been lucky enough to be exposed to music since a very young age, since as long as I can remember.
Mm.
Um, and it's music has always given me that um, feeling of traveling and going places just by hearing different types of music. I used to listen to a lot of romantic music, romantic era,
Mm.
Tchaikovsky and Chopin and all that. Um, and there's a lot of feeling in that music. And
Mm.
I'm also a huge movie nerd, and so I figured a way to just put the two together in a job that makes sense, so I can write music, but for something I love.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
to me, that was just a
Yeah,
perfect fit.
Excellent. It certainly seems like you would agree with us when we were to say that it is very much the case that the music for a film tells as much of the story as the visuals do in many ways. So it can often help with the emotions of the characters involved. It can help with the flow. It can help the audience connect with the story. Would you say that that is a correct assessment?
Sure. Yes, it's absolutely correct. This is what's difficult about scoring music for a film, and
Mm.
especially for animation, because it's not about you as a composer who's just creating, music. It's about creating something that the director wants. Um, and so it has to respect exactly the film. And you have to ask yourself the question at any given moment, what is the picture telling me? What am I asked to score right now? And it's not about, oh, I want to write this and that because that's my favorite genre.
Mm.
So it's all about following closely to picture, and especially with, as I said, animation is very important. It's a technique we call Mickey Mousing, because it's basically reproducing what you see on the screen and taking it literally into music form. Yeah.
Excellent.
So how do you kind of go about balancing that, what you can see in your head and what the director wants?
Well, there's always a lot of back and forth between composers and directors. It's very rare, in my experience, to have a director say right off the bat, "Oh, just do whatever you want," and they like everything. It's very rare. Usually, when they say that, they kind of back out and say, "Oh no, actually, can we try something else?" And so I was kind of fighting with the director at the beginning of the onboarding on this project, because she wanted piano. She wanted everything piano, because for her that was the instrument that conveyed the most emotion, right? And for me, as I'm a very different, I mean, we all have different brains and we process things differently. And for me, when I saw this film, I saw all these colors and all this, magical feel to it. And, for me, it was just obvious it had to be orchestra and big. It had to be like a, movie that you would see in theaters, not a student film. So it was a little clashing at the beginning, because she really was, pulling the string on the piano, and I was like more, I want something big. And what's really interesting is the whole team actually rooted for me on the score, because I was starting to write, and they were already listening to the first draft. And I guess that actually convinced the director, and she ended up loving it, which I'm very glad it happened that way.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Do you think, Jonathan, that maybe one of the best things in music in particular, but maybe any kind of skill or field, is that the knowledge and awareness you have of so many different instruments, for example, in this case, or maybe styles of music, really aids just an awareness of what is possible. So if you can be very, very focused, say, for example, with one piece of equipment, but and that might do a fantastic job. But if you have a knowledge and awareness of multiple styles, multiple genres, that it really helps you to open up what the possibilities are.
Sure. It definitely helps to know music per se. I've studied orchestration and counterpoint and composition for many years, and that develops also a critical ear. What's possible, what's playable, what's not playable. You learn that musicians are human beings. They need to breathe just like we do. So you cannot write a trumpet part or a clarinet solo that goes on forever, for example. Strings also have limitations because of the bowing. There's always limitations, but you, as a composer, you also have to learn to use those limitations to make choices.
Excellent.
So what are there people in the industry, composers that you look up to, film composers or other composers as well?
Sure.
Is there anyone that you kind of look at?
I would say the composers I look at the most are probably those who write music for animated films, because I believe this is by far the hardest genre to write for, because the music has to switch in a fraction of a second from one mood to another, and sometimes it goes on forever, and you have to always fall back on your feet, and that's very difficult, because sometimes you don't have time for a theme, you don't have time for exposition. You have to, it's very strategic, and you have to think very clearly and make it work. So composers I admire, for example, John Powell, David Newman, Thomas Newman, all the guys, Randy Newman, all the guys who do music for Pixar films, Disney films. I'm thinking of Alan Menken, for example, who did all the Disney scores. it's just incredible to see all the cartoon music that you hear. It's just this is all Mickey Mousing, like I was saying, and it's just incredible how people actually manage to write this in such a short amount of time and for sometimes long films.
Yeah. It's this is coming very much from someone who is within the film industry, but music is completely different to what I've studied. You mentioned about there being different necessities for each type. So with animation, there are different needs to, say, a live performance, for example, or lots of different styles. Is there a specific education or some level of some courses, for example, which are specific for each ones, or is it a kind of a general knowledge of music and application of how to compose that you then have to adapt after education, or is there something to help?
I would say both. Education definitely doesn't. Education helps a lot for guiding you and finding what you have to work on. When the primary reason I went to school, I got my MFA in music for visual media. The primary reason I decided to go for that was I already knew how to write music, and there were genres where I was very comfortable writing for, but I wanted to find out what I'm not good at, and that's basically, by going to school, you will get all these assignments, and then you will get one assignment where you can't do it, and no matter how hard you try, you can't figure it out. It seems like almost impossible, and then you realize it's just because you've never done it before. And so by going to school, you kind of get used to all the different aspects of everything that you can be asked to do. And in that regard, I think it's very helpful. Now, about learning about music, I think it's you just have to listen to a lot of it. I don't personally think we're going to create music that doesn't exist anymore. We've done that for hundreds of years, and we always seem to go back to the roots, what's been done before. And so I think it's just by listening to a lot of music, you develop an ear for what's good and what's not so good. Then you can easily tell this is going to work for the audience, this probably not. So that's probably the most important.
Fantastic.
So for the ribbon, other than what you've already said, was there any particularly challenging elements to it?
I would say the whole film was for me challenging. It took me over 2 months to write 5 minutes of score. And I was not doing it full time, but still, animation for me is that hard. That's for me the hardest thing to do. So the whole thing was challenging because I'm the type of composer who naturally likes to write dark music, emotional but dark, and this is like the complete opposite. It's all lively and playful, and just adding sparkles here and rainbows there, and it's very different from what I've done before. I would say a very challenging part for me was to actually switch from the very lively score to the hospital scene, because I wanted this to be very efficient and very powerful, and I only had one shot at this, because if I give it away before it happens, it doesn't have that much of an impact anymore. So I had to be very precise as to where I was going to hit with the score for that. And I decided to just take everything away, just leave the piano, make it very efficient that way.
Excellent.
It definitely works.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that bit.
Yeah.
I mean, visually, obviously, you see the difference visually, the difference in the color palette and everything, but yeah, just accented, I think, by your music there as well, and it really hammered home the feeling that I think the director must have been going for there.
Yeah. And it is a surprise to the audience as well, which I assume was the intention for sure.
Yes. We wanted to mislead the audience intentionally.
Yeah. I wonder if there was a difficulty in getting the tone quite right. I think you've mentioned this previously as well, in that what actually is quite a dark is not necessarily the right word, but definitely an emotionally driven and possibly an upsetting concept behind it. Yeah. But obviously there is a joy to the fact that this the girl in the piece is comforted by, well, it's hard to talk about it without giving away any kind of spoiler or anything, but is comforted by being at rest or being set free, if you like, and whether there was a difficulty in not making it too upsetting within the composition of the music.
Right. So the main theme here is basically, like you said, the being set free. That's basically what we're going for. But it's it can be challenging to watch for some people because we're tackling very serious subjects there, and we know for a fact that some viewers they actually lived through that. So we're not trying to per se make it easy on people. We're just trying to show things as they are, and it's not the fact that it's animation doesn't mean that it's all nice and good. We also want to express something that needs to be told, and like sometimes what you think is absolutely the worst thing that can happen, there's a certain way to it, but it depends how you look at it.
I wonder then, do you feel like, being a movie nerd yourself, are there some subjects in animation, for example, or maybe approaches to subjects which can't be done in other formats, or questions which can only be raised through animation? Is that? Do you think that's a possibility?
I would say it's mainly the fact that with animation, it's just unexpected to have serious subjects.
Okay.
And I'll say, for example, Pixar does a great job at this. In most Pixar films, whether it's shorts or feature-length films, they know how to make you laugh, and all of a sudden hit you with a wall of bricks. And that's or like a train, sometimes it's how it feels, and it's just it's the complete mastery of that art for me is what I'm trying also to convey, and I think it's more powerful than if it was live action.
A lot of that, I guess, is probably about timing as well. So the music has to assist what is being shown. You mentioned it with the hospital section. A joke doesn't work if the music is slightly before or slightly after. It just doesn't work. And I think maybe that's what a lot of people maybe don't take into account. They maybe take it for granted that this is a whole project, a whole process where everything comes together, hopefully, to make the final product what it is.
And everything has to hit in the right place, kind of thing, to add up to something.
And how much communication there is between, for example, yourself and the director, and in some cases, in a negative way, perhaps if there's a budgetary requirement involved where you have to get something done in a certain amount of time and trying to hit those targets in a certain amount of time, for example. There's lots of challenges, but it all works together, hopefully, to create an overall project which is better than what it would ever be if these individual pieces were by themselves. So, what we've spoken about so far is very, very interesting, because this isn't exactly what we do ourselves.
I mean, we're filmmakers as well.
Yeah.
But I'm a cinematographer typically.
Yeah.
And you're an
actor mainly, so this is slightly different. But
we really appreciate
exactly
how it can help films. So we were looking forward to talking to you and seeing your take on it, because we've had music. We've had music scored for films in the past, and we've also had kind of like off-the-shelf music that's been edited around to make it work, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we definitely see the benefits of working with someone, and I think film is so much about kind of collaboration, that if we can kind of collaborate with someone else, you're going to have ideas as a composer that I'd never have as a cinematographer. So I just think that helps to make the whole process a lot richer, really.
Yes.
I think, had you seen any of the director's work before you started this, and do you have plans to work with her again?
I had not worked on any of her stuff before, and I have actually never seen her work before coming on board for this project. We actually worked remotely. She was in Taiwan and I was in San Francisco. And the first time I actually met the director was at the premiere in Hollywood. So and so we did the entire project just remotely.
Yeah. Were there challenges? Because I imagine that you had to speak through emails or different processes.
Skype.
Yeah.
Any difficulties there?
You just have to be very clear about everything you're doing. Make sure the person understands all the steps that you're taking, and make sure to update all the time, because it's very easy when you work remotely to have misunderstandings. Oh, I thought you were doing this, and I thought and of course on a project like this, when you have deadlines, you can't do that. You can't afford to you can't afford to just start working on something that someone else is doing, or just waste time this way. And you want to make sure you really have all the guidelines to do what you need to do, and then deliver it by by the deadline. So you really have to be organized. That's probably the main takeaway for, in my opinion, to work remotely with directors and composers.
So is that something you do often in your work, then, work remotely? Are you often in the same room as the director or not?
I actually often work remotely, but I've also had projects where I get to meet the director every week, and that's easier. It's always easier to talk face to face, and to be able to show each other, hey, this is what I came up with, and this is what I was thinking for maybe inspiration or something. It's always, the process is always easier. And that's probably also because I'm very used to work remotely with a lot of people. So for me now, being face to face with someone is very easy. So it's definitely it's a good school to teach you how to be organized and to do things the right way.
I wanted to ask, is there a I don't know how frequent this is, whereby it seems to be that most composers get a finished product, or finished visual product anyway, and then are reacting almost to what's on screen with the conversation with the director, for example. Are there many instances, even in your experience, where you might be working with a director or some filmmakers way in advance to help
out at the ideas phase? I guess,
even
as well.
at the drawing board, whereby the music can be
influence like the
some
film
elements.
as well.
Is that
Sure.
do you reckon that happens often?
It's the earliest you can get on board with the project, the better. Because there's always going to be stuff happening that were not expected. And if you don't have much time if you're already cramped for time, it will be it will be a stressful experience. Um, so um, I've had both scenarios where I've started project very late. The Ribbon, for example, was one of them. But since it was a 4-minute film, it's not too dramatic. You can make it work. Um, and right now I'm working on a feature film that's over 2 hours,
Brilliant.
live
Wow.
action.
Okay.
And that's actually the opposite problem because I started too early on this project, and that can happen too. I actually started this back in 2011, and never finished it. So
Wow.
um, now I'm like, now that I'm getting so much projects, I'm having a hard time finding time to finish that long one that I started a long time ago. So there's there's a balance also to have, but as a general rule, it's better to, this is kind of like the exception. You don't really see that very often. A lot of projects get aborted, along the way, but this one for some reason has kept going for like 9 years. uh, and yeah, as a general rule, if you start early, there's less stress later on.
Okay. Well, just a few more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just wanted to ask if there was, because in many throughout we've talked about you working on projects for other people. Are you composing your own music, for example? Is that what you like to do as well? Original stuff, as far as you selling, composing just as yourself. Is that something you do as well?
Yeah, that's all I do. I just write music for.
Excellent.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I do the arrangement, the orchestration. I do everything myself. It cuts down a lot on the costs.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The music for the Ribbon, I've done all this on a MacBook Air, so
Wow,
this is where we're at now with the technology and sample libraries.
Yeah.
When I started writing music, not to picture, just writing music in general, that was in 2005, and it was still MIDI sounds, very ugly sounding, the MIDI protocol. And if you wanted better sounds, you would have to spend thousands of dollars, on libraries. And now you get amazing sound libraries for cheap, and if not for free sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and the machines are a lot more powerful too. Now you can do everything on a laptop. And I know for a fact, video editing, for example, is the same thing. Now you can cut a whole film on a laptop, which was unheard of, like 10 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. As with anything, technology always makes things better usually. So it's often a blessing, isn't it, when you can do more with less.
Yeah, it's like cameras getting smaller and smaller as well, and
Sure.
and then that enables you to do completely different shots, like drones, for example. The cameras in those are tiny, so
perfect example.
Yeah.
It empowers people that could never have done this, a few years back, because they're not professionals, so they would just have to give up that hope of becoming a filmmaker. Now everything's possible, so it's a thriving industry, which I'm happy to be part of now.
Oh, brilliant. And just a very quick point. You mentioned, say, drones there. Now, this might be a strange question. With there being, for example, more opportunity for low-budget filmmakers or all different kinds of filmmakers to get access to something like a drone, for example, does having more prominent, higher amount of, say, aerial shots, for example, or different kinds of shots in a piece, does that open up opportunities for you as a composer to create different types of music which can respond to a multitude of new different kinds of shots? For example, a drone shot, for example, does it
I guess, have you noticed that kind of the difference in what's being captured now and from smaller budget crews and things like that? Do you notice that in what you put music to?
Yes, definitely. It's some of my projects have like almost exclusively drone shots.
Right. Yeah.
I've worked on um, a commercial for a French company called ACS France, and what they do, they're basically it's a camera team. They basically do like drone footage with helicopters and they worked on all the big blockbusters out there. And they asked me to put together a soundtrack for a demo reel, which looks absolutely amazing. It's all shots from Captain America and James Bond, and and it's great. I mean, beautifully shot. And so it needs also its own style of music because uh, as I was saying, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have that much drone shots. They would be very expensive. They would be done with like helicopters for the most part. And that was it, so you would just have like a small amount in a movie, and now you have a lot of them. Sometimes it's just I think it's great. It opens the doors for more genres, and it's, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us. Do you have any final questions, Adam?
Just I guess what your final question would be, kind of like what have you got coming up, and what are you up to at the moment, and what does the future hold?
Well, most of my projects are all hush hush, there's stuff I cannot talk about really. But I've just finished a feature-length documentary, nature documentary that's going to be probably on TV next year. That's about the Pacific Northwest and so British Columbia and Oregon, all that. So that was an exciting project. I have 4 projects right now that I'm currently working on. So it's very common for me to work on 3 or 4, sometimes 5 projects concurrently, because you can't afford just doing one project only and then moving on to the next. It would take too much time, and sometimes you also need to switch to a different project to get the drive back up, because sometimes you get stuck, and that happens for all creative people. And it's just sometimes there's nothing that comes, and you have to, since you have deadlines, you still have to make things happen. So it's very easy to just then switch to another project, and then inspiration will come back.
Brilliant. How can people follow your career, and if there's anything that you're working on, is there certain social media which may be useful for people to have at all? How can people keep in touch with you?
Sure. I have a Facebook page, and so just Jonathan Galland, and it's the guy playing the violin on the picture, and so that's me, and so people can follow me on my page. I post. I try to post regularly. I work a lot, so sometimes I just don't have.
It's a challenge sometimes.
It's a challenge sometimes to find time to answer all the comments or to post new things. But I try to keep it fresh and up to date. I also put up a YouTube channel that also has my name, and I'm not a YouTuber. It's just I just want my work to be there, So for people to check it out, and to be able to hear the full tracks, because for example, I've got music on Amazon and Google Play and iTunes, but usually it's previews. You cannot listen to the full track because then you have to buy it. And I still want people to be able to listen to the whole thing, even if they're not buying it, they're not downloading it. At least they can, I've had, for example, a couple of reviews about The Ribbon, from film music critics, and that wouldn't really work if people were not able to listen to the whole soundtrack. So I think it's a personal choice. I decided to just provide music to be listened to, the full track.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. What we'll do now is we'll stop recording, and then we can just say goodbye and everything. But thank you once again. It's a pleasure speaking to you, because it's something which we don't do ourselves, but is so related to our career choices and everything. So thank you so much.
Make what we do
much
look a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In your audio.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm still processing the amount of knowledge that I got from it, which is fantastic. Honestly, I really just can't understate that. I really can't express how much that changed my understanding of a composer's mindset. It's also helped me in communications with composers since, and hopefully will lead to a nice result in the future, because now I have some understanding. I can, even as like a producer, like you can sort of understand the problems that they might have. Maybe it's like time constraints and things like that.
How it can't necessarily be done in 5 days.
Yeah, which we need it done now. Well, okay, but I also need to think of the idea, make the some tests, and then actually compose it fully with all these different instruments. I've got other commitments as well. I'm not just working for you, so lots of things, which is very useful.
A talented guy Jonathan is as well.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things about this industry, is that there are so many incredibly talented people that just do not get the recognition that they deserve. And actually, a lot of the recognition for most people just comes in the fact that they are, working, getting paid, doing the job that they love and have chosen to do, their craft, just again and again and again. And that just shows in Jonathan that he is an amazing talent, and we were both in awe of him and speaking to him, and loved it.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to feature him on the podcast.
Indeed, yeah.
And others like him.
Exactly.
Everyone that we've interviewed has been great to hear their unique insights.
Their thoughts, yeah. So not just getting their insights, but also helping to show that aspect of creativity, talent, and things in whatever way we can, because these people deserve it. So, yes. Well, as promised, Adam, would you like to give the listeners and the viewers the thing that they've all been dying to hear, the most important part?
I'll read out the code from this now.
Get your pens and papers ready.
So the code this week is WDPODJG836.
And one more time.
That is WDPODJG836.
Excellent.
Is that clear enough for you?
I think so. Of course, if you miss that, I think you can message us, rewind it, play it again. Yeah. Modern technology is a fantastic thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Try and decipher
speaking of which, you were featured for the first time as an interviewer. I do apologise, audience. I mean, that might have been a horrendous experience.
Might have been.
Or the best. In which case,
send us a letter and tell us.
Tell us, or any kind of message. Give us a question.
I mean, you can do it digitally.
Yeah, whatever.
If you want.
Yeah.
We probably should have mentioned that at the start.
Oh, we're really professional.
Oh well.
We'll get them next time.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay, we don't bore you for any longer. But we will be with you again next week. We are now weekly committed to. So have a good week, everyone. Been a pleasure bringing this interview to you and speaking to Jonathan, and see you then, or listen to us then, whatever.
Or find us on social media.
Oh yeah, like, subscribe, all that.
In the meantime.
I'm missing everything. It's just because we've got so much to say.
Well, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.